Well, what is 3 minutes all about?
Ron, I appreciate your time very much today. Thank you so very much for joining. I want to thank Co-Head for being here. What is 3 minutes?
It's a publication I put together 22 years ago. And I made it a monthly publication. And the idea was to bring a little humor into your life every single day. And for everybody, working people, students, elderly people, golfers, the people doing various things, retailers, or people are waiting at dentist offices and at medical offices and whatever else. They pick up something and it adds a little humor to their lives and they feel better. The idea is just to let people feel a little bit better. The advertisers liked it because it was getting to the people at a very good time. It's sort of a vulnerable time. They were sitting there waiting and thinking about their problems, and all of a sudden they see something about, say, Lake Miriam Pawn Shop. Right after Jim opened up in South Lakeland, he began advertising with me, and people would see that and they'd say, hey, I can get jewelry for half the normal price. Wow, it's phenomenal. Some of it might be used, some is new, but I can do a lot better than I would normally do. So I would take that and it would be something that they could utilize in some way again and again.
Yeah, make them feel
better.
better.
It was just maybe 8, 10, 12, 16 pages every single month we brought it out initially. But then I began to retire, so I got older, and I said, how about we just do it every other month? So we began in 2004 or 5, just having it every other month. And 6 times a year for some 20 years now, we've been 3 minutes. And the idea of 3 minutes is just to take about 3 minutes of your day to read about 500 words. That's it.
And they're going to be all positive words.
Well, there are things like jokes and informational tidbits that you would have that you would enjoy knowing about, whatever it might be. You take a little question. A bat and a ball costs $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much did the ball cost?
A dime?
No, that's what everybody says, a dime, but it's not. It's 5 cents. You have to think about it. $1 more. See, the bat costs $1 more.
Okay.
So it's just little informational tidbits
like
that. But then I also got into things like factual information about the world, about why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? People want to know these things, but they don't really, they're kids, they would ask their mother and father, and they say, well, God made the sky blue. But that's not the case. The case is what really transpires in the universe to allow for this to occur.
Even a laugh. What does a laugh do to your mind?
Yeah, well, of course, the whole idea is, I would put it on there, laughter is good for you. It begins each day with a joke. Realize the humor and let happiness filter through your body all day long. Tickle your nucleus accumbens with thought. There's nothing better. The nucleus accumbens is right here in your brain, in the temporal sides of your brain. And what you do is you get the ventral tegmental area, which is at the base of your brain, and you get dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter, to shoot up there to the nucleus accumbens, and you just feel good. And you can do this by yourself. All you have to do is think it. Just think it. Now the ACC up here, in the frontal lobes, the anterior cingulate cortex is what starts it. And it says, hey, I feel lousy. I want to feel good. I want to feel, yeah. So all of a sudden you trigger this ventral tegmental area, which is in the base brain, to go up there to the nucleus accumbens, and you've got that dopamine, and boom.
So dopamine, anytime you dispense dopamine in your mind, somehow when you dispense
it makes it feel better. But dopamine is constantly being manufactured in your brain. See, that's the nice thing about it. It's being done again and again. Right now, as we're talking, it's happening again and again and again and again and again, along with all the other things. Acetylcholine's being made, serotonin's being made, gamma aminobutyric acid is being made. They're all working together.
Isn't that what drugs does? Drugs allows for the dispensing of dopamine without work, you just take a drug, an illicit drug, if you will, and it just opens that dopamine up.
It's manufactured. And that is good, and it's also bad. Because then when the brain gets used to the artificial aspect, then it shuts off the making of it. See, that's the problem. With all drugs, it's like that. But we take this to get rid of this for a reason, especially with pain. Yeah, that's the reason. But the whole idea, 3 minutes, we talked to people throughout the entire area. And initially, we went as far west as Plant City, and we went even all the way over to Haines City in Polk County. But then I began to narrow the confines a little bit so I could get more and more people regularly wanting this and having it. And the advertisers felt that, hey, most of our business is coming from the Lakeland area, so we confined it to Lakeland. We have 150 different locations.
150 locations that you distribute this?
Yes.
Wow.
150 different locations. Now, you've got them, you can go up and down Florida Avenue and you can find 5,000 places in which you could put some publications. But restaurants, coffee shops, of course, doctor's offices, dental offices, retail stores, the advertisers themselves dispense it. You have a lot of really businesses that are open to just picking up a copy while people are waiting for something. And it's, you know, you might have a hospital, for example, with 20 different locations to put the publications at, you know, or I could remember doing things up in and around the hospital in retirement homes and everything else. And then you have your golf courses. You have all the golf courses around town, and you have multiple locations within those golf courses.
I noticed that in the developing of this, you tend to go into golfing a lot of jokes about golfing, so golf is in your life.
It was because I made my living in the golf business as a broadcaster and as a host of a show. I then got to know a lot of the golf people. And I said, for example, Ron Garl, who is one of Lakeland's most prominent residents, he is a designer of golf courses all over the world. In 5 different continents, he's at golf courses. And Ron's been an advertiser with us. We do stories on Ron, a whole bit about what he's done in China, for example, or in Africa, or in South America, you know, let alone the United States. He's got more courses, for example, in Florida that are top 100 courses than any other designer of any golf course.
I'm looking forward to meeting him one day.
Ron Garl is a prominent citizen, and people don't realize what this man has done. He's been in business 50 years already designing golf courses, and he does a phenomenal job. He's been one of our, we have, as I mentioned before, Lake Miriam Pond. Jim and his wife, Laura, they're just absolutely sensational people. And they have Lake Miriam Pond. They're down there where the Outback Steakhouse is. And they have been in business, I think it's in 25 years now, but they've established a reputation, which is just phenomenal. And people will just go and they stop in there all the time, and boy, they'll see their ad, you know, here.
And he's been an advertiser with you from the beginning?
Almost from the beginning. I can't remember a year that he wasn't, or even a time that he wasn't. But he's, you know, he's
a staple in our community.
Here it is here, Lake Miriam Pond, right here.
Along with Jim from
well, we've got
shoe repair, Jim.
Well, Jim
McFarland.
Jim McFarland, of course. The McFarland shoes is a staple here in town. Just great, and so is Anthony's Health Hut. For 20 years, they were advertisers with us. Haycock Insurance was right on the corner of Main Street here in Florida Avenue. For umpteen years, they were a part of this. We've got the National Auto Show, which we've got our version of it right here in the Lake Merritt Classic. And they've been an advertiser with us ever since, well, Ford put it together in 1999. So we've been promoting people. We promote restaurants, of course, Delicious Restaurant, which we're not too far from, and we helped them get started about, I think, 12 to 15 years ago before they got at their current location. They were in South Florida.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
She's been in business 12 years?
Yeah, at least 12 years, maybe even longer.
I did not know that.
And then you had, of course, Mitchell's has been with us ever since they began. Mitch was, I think it was his 25th anniversary. Here's Mitchell's right here. Been advertising with us for just many, many years. Probably all of the years that we've been in business, anyway.
And you got
Yeah.
Mark and Sandra Benninger.
Are
that
now
took
the new
over.
owners, and now the new owners, and Mitch is sort of retired, and they're gonna maintain the same hours, the same great pastries, the same great service. They're terrific. So we've got an awful lot of people that have been advertisers and promoters with us. It's hard to mention everybody. Some of our advertisers we've given to here, Snowbird Heating and Cooling, and of course this place called I Am Lakeland. I Am Lakeland. And this has been such a wonderful thing to have you as a partner now in this endeavor.
Thank you.
Because I've been a part of it, for so many years, and I'm getting up there a little bit, but I'm still ready to keep on going.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and it is a pleasure and an honor to work with you.
Well, it's my pleasure, really. But here's Ron Garl, which we talked about, his logo here, Express Tires and Wheels. They just went out of business, as a matter of fact. They've got they're doing a new business in a different town.
Oh,
They
wow.
moved out of the Lakeland area.
I know that.
Thomason's Furniture and Consignment, we've started with them about 12 years ago in South Florida. And they're now out on the east side of town near Cumbie Road. They're terrific, great people. Nolte Golf for many, many years. Now, for the last 10 years or so, the Salt Room and the Velocity Medicine next to it has been a part of our advertising. So we've got there's so many more, of course,
I
over the
agree.
years, but all been various publications. We try to bring a little humor and a little laughter to their lives in various ways, and then some information. And that's, of course, what we want to do more than anything else is bring
It's
the
not,
information.
it's not a newsletter. It's an information, it's a feel-good newsletter. It's not meant to tell you what's going on in politics and stuff like
and
that.
It's not meant to tell you what's happening next week at the corner drugstore or whatever, It's a bi-monthly publication, comes out 6 times a year, and what it does is it's trying to bring a little bit of humor and interest to your life. That's
I like that. I like that logo there. That's a cool one.
Yeah, well, that I Am Lakeland is just great,
And I noticed some of the stories that you tell in here are from your books that you've written over the years.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your books, if you don't mind.
Okay, here is what I think.
Like
It's really
Make Every Day
important.
Discovery Day.
Yeah. And that, as a matter of fact, that's a book that I'm writing right now, which is almost completed. But I think the best way to expound upon this is to tell a story.
Let's hear it.
And I'm going to tell you a story like you've never heard before.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you the most interesting story in the world. It is so astonishing, so fascinating, so remarkable that you're going to just be in awe by it.
Just spend some
Now,
dopamine.
the reason, that's right. Now, the reason why it is so astonishing, so fascinating, so remarkable is that it's a true story, and it's constantly upgraded for its veracity by the most brilliant people on earth, again and again and again, looking to shoot holes in it in some way, but they can't. If they do, then they fill up the holes and start it with something else, and they give you the truth. So, this story begins, like all good stories, once upon a time. Once upon a time. Except this story begins at the beginning of time. Nearly 13.8 billion years ago, that's with a B, seemingly nothing exploded into existence, delivering to our current realization a compelling universe of 100 billion and more galaxies, each with an average of 100 billion and more stars, and literally trillions upon trillions of planetary bodies and moons and asteroids, etc. Now, this is only the matter that we detect now, and it's only 5% of the entire universe. Now, we know that the other 95% is there, but the matter that we, tables and you and me and all the planets and stars and whatever else, is only makes up 5% of it. Nearly 25% is dark matter that surrounds us. We don't even know, but there's something in the air. There's dark matter that surrounds every single galaxy and all that within that galaxy. And then 68 to 70% is dark matter. This is matter that's between the galaxies, pushing them apart at enormous speeds. And we have proof of all this. We know this to be a fact. It's not something that's a guess. So it's a phenomenal thing. And that's why I say it's astonishing, this cosmology of all these things. Now photons, light, we're here and we can see each other because they're bombarding off of our eyes and turning it into electrons, the photons of light. They began with that big bang that started the universe nearly 13.8 billion years ago. And the photons of light are so small, there's 1 billion of them for every one little proton. And you know how small a proton is? When a company with one electron, it makes up all the elements of hydrogen. And hydrogen, they have 2 protons, 2 electrons make up helium, which is the next largest of the elements. And we have 92 regular elements on the planet Earth. But it's unbelievable that we have all this, that we can see this and we can understand this and all these things that are happening. Now, protons take 7 billion years to fuse into the next largest, helium. These protons that are just single by themselves and with an electron, which is called hydrogen.
Just to follow you, is this still part of the story?
Oh yeah, this is all
Okay.
part of the story. This is how the story begins, because we have to start someplace. And we began nearly 13.8 billion years ago. So you've got this hydrogen to helium, which is fusing, and it's fusing right now in our sun. That's what makes the energy, is that fusing of hydrogen into helium. Now, 600 million tons, get this now, 600 million tons of hydrogen is being converted or fused into 596 million tons of helium every second in our sun. Every second this is going on. This is what keeps us alive. This is what's going on. And this is where we get the energy for everything. That's what's so phenomenal. Now, about 93 million miles away from that sun is the planet Earth, which receives its light 4 minutes and 19 seconds after it emanates from that sun star 93 million miles away. It takes 4 minutes and 19 seconds from that photon, little photon of light, to make it all the way to Earth, because it's 93 million miles away. It's fascinating.
It is.
Actually, that's the astonishing part. Now comes the fascinating part, the really fascinating part, and that is, how did life begin on this planet approximately 4 billion years ago? The Earth formed about 4.7 million years ago, but life didn't start on this planet till what is believed to be 3.8 to 4 billion years ago. Now that is a really long time, but yet it's a short time when it comes to the universe,
Coincidentally, I think that's how old my mother-in-law is. I'm just kidding.
Well, that's the wonderful thing you get from 3 minutes too. You get that humor. So that's the whole idea. That's probably what's in one of my movies. The idea is to take something like this factual information that we've learned, and try to decipher how we've come to be who we are. Now, people have to understand how life began. Life began by a combination of these elements that came together under pressure, under heat, and over time. And that's how hydrogen and helium became other elements. All these elements came together and they formed ribonucleic acids. These acids, like ribonucleic acid, became deoxyribonucleic acids with the addition of oxygen. And all of a sudden we have DNA. And all of a sudden we have archaea. We have We have various things that are cloning each other. They're just one after the other, until about 500 or so million years ago, where we have eukaryotic life forms coming together, where two cells split and become two different cells.
Splitting, that's how
Yeah.
we became about. We had one
Exactly.
cell,
There
fertilized.
are eukaryotic cells, and then you have cloning cells that just clone each other. But all of a sudden, to gain the ability to last longer, cells began to divide and then have daughter cells. And that's when we got into more sophisticated life. And life began to form. That's what made it so fascinating, that we have not only the various bugs and viruses and things of that nature, but we got into little fish and worms, and then fish, and then larger fish, and then amphibians. And then all of a sudden dinosaurs came on the scene. And for over 100 million years, they ruled everything. And if it wasn't for an unbelievable explosion about 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs would still be ruling everything. Humans wouldn't even be around. But because of this unbelievable explosion of an asteroid hitting the Earth went dark, and all of those giant animals began to die off. And all except for the birds. The birds are remnants of dinosaurs.
What about the cockroaches?
Yeah, well, they could be too, come to think of it. But humans came on the scene. It's all evolved over time.
So that means we're all one.
Yeah,
We're all related.
Exactly. But the primates came on the scene about 25 million years ago. Chimpanzees overcame bonobos, a different type of primate, and we took on the characteristics of a chimpanzee. And then from that, over time, we became humanistic. But we weren't humans yet. We still didn't have the sophistication that we have here. But over millions and millions of years, then finally man began to form. And we have evidence of this exactly now. We have 23 pairs of chromosomes, which distinguish us from chimpanzees at 24 pairs of chromosomes. That happened about 5 to 6 million years ago. We have strong evidence of that. And so then mankind began to get more fascinating and more fascinating over time. Cro-Magnon man, Neanderthal man.
Self-aware.
Then human man. We began to make fire. We began to find ways in which to make the wheel. We began ways to do various things. And then, of course, to kill.
And then humor popped up.
And then, well, there probably was some funny things that occurred, but they weren't in words. So there wasn't the 3 men of publications available at that time. But you have the fascinating aspects of life. Life is so fascinating. And humans came on the scene about 70,000 years ago on a permanent basis. Now, humans have been around. We have evidence of human beings 200,000 years ago. But they died off in various areas, except for in Africa, in the plains of Africa. And they finally moved out of the plains of Africa, where we're down to about 2,000 human beings. And then we finally moved north and east and began to flourish. Neanderthals were still around at that time. And we mixed for many, many years. But Neanderthals died off about probably 15,000 years ago or more. But human beings, we've flourished ever since. But it was the human brain that did it. It was the human brain that gave us this unbelievable ability to flourish in the way that we have. And that is the third part of our story. That is the remarkable part. The human brain. Think about this. From the 25th day of gestation, after conception, the human brain begins to compile neurons at the rate of 250,000 a minute. Every 4 minutes, a million. Every hour, 15 million. Every day, 360
It's just dividing
million.
itself and dividing itself.
Again and
dividing
again
itself.
to 100 billion neurons. At that time before it's born, 100 billion. So the child, you were born with 100 billion, I was born with 100 billion. But then they're pruned in the first 2 years because there's many that are redundant. And so we've got down to maybe 82 to maybe as many as 84 billion neurons. These are the thinking cells. These are the ones that have arms that are called axons and fingers that are called dendrites. And they reach out for the next neuron and the next one all the way through our brain. And this happens again and again and again where they're utilized. Then you've all kinds of different brain cells, like glia cells, pyramidal cells, Purkinje cells in the back part of your brain here in the cerebellum are very densely packed Purkinje cells. But the neurons are the ones you think with. And this is what really makes it, and you and me, so remarkable, is that these neurons can do the job that they do. And that is the last part of our story. The story where how do things happen? When you're listening right now and I'm speaking, how is that occurring? What makes that feasible? Well, you think you don't.
I think it comes in through my ears and it goes to my brain, and my brain interprets it to some degree.
How does it all happen? What starts it?
Dude, I've been trying to figure this out my whole life.
Well, exactly. All people are looking to find out. It happens within the cell. Like thieves in the night, these ribosomes and lysosomes, they're little ingredients outside of the nucleus of the cell. They sneak in to the cell core and they see all this DNA and these chromosomes all interwound in there. We've got these 23 pairs, and we've got how many? 6 billion, 3 billion pairs of DNA in that little cell. And they sneak in there and they keep looking around. They can't extract it. It's there, it's permanent. But what they can do is find out how things can be made. And they sneak back out and they go to their laboratory and they fashion
What they read?
What they read, the ingredients, and they fashion dopamine. They put it together. And then they shove it out the Golgi apparatus, which is the hole, like the neck, and they shove it out. And there it goes along the axon. But it sometimes can't get enough strength to get up there, so it needs to be shot. And they have little openings along the axon where they get some stray electrons and they just shoot them up there. Get moving, get up there, you gotta get up there. And they get that dopamine up here to the dendrites. And those dendrites then meet up with other dopamine dendrites and they fashion it and it sparks it and they carry it on to the next one. And that happens in 1/10,000th of a second. And that's what's happening in your brain right now, in my brain. That's how thought, word, and deed is made in all of us. It is so unbelievable.
You gotta appreciate, it's hard to appreciate such complexity. I can only rationalize the truth because I can't follow.
Right.
I mean, I've chosen not to, I could probably, but understanding that it happens is so much easier for me to say than to try to study how it happens. Well, I take for granted that it happens, that something.
But it makes
happened.
it even better when you understand it, when you read about it or you hear about it, and you say, wow, or try to shoot holes in it. Say, well, that might be, well, everybody, you've had the most brilliant people, millions, just not 1 or 2 or 10 or 20, but millions of people shooting holes in this over the years, saying, yeah, that can't be true. Well, God, it is true. It's true. It happens again and again and again because it's proven again and again and again. That's why we can do things that we have today, marvelous inventions, marvelous technology, especially in medicine. We got fMRIs now. fMRIs. We can see. We got PET scans. We can see inside your brain. You see.
I've heard that they even are able to interpret thoughts to some degree.
Yeah. And they can take blind people and let them see various things.
And deaf hear.
Yeah. It's unbelievable what's transpired, and there's no end to what we're going to be able to do in the future, again and again.
Yeah, 100 years ago, we didn't know what we know now. Imagine 100 years from now, what we don't know.
Yeah, and not only that, it's over time, you found a few things out. 500 years ago, so much, then 400 years ago, 300, 200 years ago, 100 years ago. But each decade and each decade within a century is like 100 times more is being found, 1,000,000 times more, then a billion times more. Wow, look at all the things that will be able to.
When was a quark discovered? Wasn't a quark like discovered this last 100 years or something like that?
Quarks were discovered in just about 50 years ago,
Oh, only 50.
in the mid 1970s.
So do we think that there's anything
Now, what is a
smaller than a
quark?
quark?
What is a quark?
A quark, as I understand, is inside the nucleus of a proton, or way down deep inside.
Right, yeah. Quarks are made up, there's 3 quarks within a proton and 3 quarks within a neutron. Mostly they're up, down, top, and bottom, and colorful and strange. Those are, and then there's types of those. There's like 36 different types, but mostly they're up and down and top and bottom. The up and 2 up and 1 down in a proton, 2 down and 1 up in a neutron.
Can you imagine something inside of a quark?
Well, now they've already discovered that. In 2015, Nobel Prize has been given to 2 scientists, I believe, particle physicists, who have come up with virtual particles that have appeared and then disappeared, the same one. And they're called kaons, I believe, or maybe tachyons.
As I understand it, the fact that you're observing it changes it. It knows when it's being observed.
Yes, it can. It's Heisenberg principle, the principle of uncertainty. Quantum entities, unobserved attributes are not really real until an active observation elevates it to full reality status. That's the uncertainty principle. Werner Heisenberg happened to be one of the most brilliant people on earth, and happened to be a Nazi. Happened to be a Nazi in the German party, but was given special status, and we overlooked a lot of the things that he did after the war because of his brilliant mind. Now, how much he had effect, they were worried about him during the Second World War, that he might have been able to come up with the atom bomb because he was so brilliant. Einstein was the one that said, hey, Heisenberg is very brilliant, he might be able to know. But the Germans didn't have deuterium. They needed deuterium.
Is that an element?
That's heavy hydrogen. And that heavy water is what they needed to have. And they couldn't come up with the ingredients for that. And they didn't have access also to one of the other elements.
Enriched uranium?
Well, the uranium is what they were trying to get. They didn't have deposits of uranium, and they needed to have more.
I think it had to be enriched, some special.
Yeah, that's where you add more to it, plutonium. But again, they were limited. They were limited in supply, whereas the United States had access to that. But Werner Heisenberg gave us this, and you have people like, of course, Albert Einstein, that gave us an appreciation of things. And all these things, these little tidbits of information, I try to relate in 3 minutes in these publications. And then I try to consolidate it all into my books, make every day Discovery Day, so that people can discover this, to understand this. And I try to interpret it for them and make it easy for them, like thieves in the night. What happens to each and every cell? What's going on right now? These thieves are just sneaking in. You can see them, breaking into the place. There's a safe there. Now they got to get into that safe. And I try to take that and then make stories out of it. In some cases, I try to make mystery stories out of it. And that makes it even more fascinating.
So how many books have you written?
Well, I've written 17 books at this point, and right now in the middle of, actually at the conclusion of 10 new books. 10 books that are really unique, and we'll probably get into that more and more as we talk in these podcasts about what these books entail, so that the audience can really appreciate them.
Can you tell me one more story?
Sure.
The story of this.
A Gift of Time. During COVID, I stated in one of my little tidbits of information that it might be a good thing that we have COVID, because it slows us down. It gives us an appreciation of time. Because what's happening in our world is we're not appreciating the things that we need to appreciate. 20 years ago, we would spend about 3 minutes like this, reading things, thinking about things. Today, we only give that information 23 seconds. 23 seconds.
We spend 23 seconds on
On one thing.
one
on
thing
and
instead
then
of
we-
3 minutes.
Pretty soon, we're off to here,
Our
off to
attention
here,
span.
our attention span.
Our attention spans have gone.
So we want a gift of time. We want to understand what is time and how beneficial can it be for us.
As I see it, time is the only thing I truly have. Time is the only thing I really have. I can't own that piece of wood, that's good. I can't own the ground, that's God. The only thing I'm given at this moment is time. So I need to appreciate my time.
Well, what is time?
You're probably gonna tell me more
Okay.
than I know.
Time is change. The only reason why I am different from the time I picked up the water is because time has changed things. In that time, I changed. The bottle was here, then it's here. It changes things. There's a progression that changes with time.
And it's constant too, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because there's constant change. Why is there constant change? Because there's constancy in the makeup of everything. All of the molecules of air and all the, the elements themselves
The
are
energy,
always changing.
everything's got
Everything is
energy.
changing. It never stops. And so consequently you have a change. And a gift of time is something I wanted people to appreciate. And so I put together this booklet for someone special, and we sold them at Christmas time. And people send cards out. It's the same size as a regular card. A gift of time for you. What better gift could you give somebody than time? Now, how do you give time? Well, first of all, experts tell us that from the time we're 16 years of age when we get our driver's license to the time we're probably stopping driving or not driving as much is 76. It's 60 years. In that 60-year period of time, we spend 6 months waiting at red lights. 6 months, or waiting for a train. As we found out today. 6 months of wasted time. People sit in their car and complain, naturally, and swear and whatever. But what they should be doing is thinking about all the things that I just got through talking about, finding out things. How do you know about this? How did this happen? Why is the grass green? Why is the sky blue? You see?
Discover. Make every day discovery day.
And you can sit in a car rather than listening to the music or smoking cigarettes or being on your cell phone.
Yeah.
The cell phone, you can discover things, but too often you don't really discover something that will stay with you. You'll find out about it and then but the problem with that is the fact that it also can be disconcerting because then you're right in the middle of something and the car moves. Just utilize your brain. And then later on confirm it with your cell phone or your computer. Find out then and say, okay, yeah, that's true. How fast is the earth moving? Right now, we're sitting here, and the earth is moving at what? 1,000 miles an hour around, right?
The sun.
24,000 miles.
It's spinning itself or it's going around the sun?
We're just spinning itself now around.
As a kid,
It's 24,000,
As a kid, I think I was taught like 100 miles an hour.
1,000 miles an
It's
hour.
1,000.
Yeah, because you have 24-hour days. You have 24,000 is the circumference of the earth. So just 1,000 miles. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
But how fast is the entire earth moving around the sun?
364.
67,000 miles an hour on average. 67,000 miles an hour, we're just moving through space. But the sun and all the planets, Mercury and Venus and us and Mars, we're all moving around the center of the galaxy at 488,000 miles an hour, nearly 500,000 miles an hour. And then, of course, the entire galaxy, Milky Way galaxy, is moving out and away from all other galaxies at 1.3 million miles an hour and speeding up constantly.
But yet, I'm aware that I'm sitting here with you, talking to you right now. How is that possible?
It's unbelievable.
It shouldn't have happened.
We've put it all together, Don. we put all of this together by our thinking. That's what's so phenomenal. It's all those little, it's all those little neurons, and they're working like mad to synapse. We are just individuals who, because of the synaptic explosions in our brain, understand what we're doing, and we put it together in a way in which we can operate rather than be chaos.
So, did you want to elaborate any more on
The
that?
gift of time, that's probably the simplest way to appreciate a gift of time. Now, you can utilize it in so many different ways, and you can look up various experts on change and time, what it represents to them. And I just happen to have put together a little idea about the time because I had gotten a watch from my father, who got a watch from his father. And it had to do with, it might have been Einstein's watch. And we toyed with that whole idea because it was the same thing, it was the same make, and it was at the same time as he had some problems when he came over from Germany to the United States.
And it was engraved.
And it was engraved. And so we're thinking that it might be, and it very well might be, but it doesn't really matter.
Get a copy and read it.
Yeah, well, a gift of time is, the idea was just to put it together and not to make anything big about it, you know, to try to say, hey, this is what it is and whatever. It was just to let people know this story. And I wanted to do it for my son, mainly, because it was his birthday. I was passing on this watch to him as it goes along the line. So we have it mounted up there.
Well, that is fantastic.
So
3 minutes
3
around,
minutes.
22 years. Some sponsors come and go, but the idea of 3 minutes, take it out in your life to humor yourself, to take life in appreciation. Just take 3 minutes of your time.
Yeah. 150 different locations within Lakeland. Stop down to DeVicious, they always have copies there. Stop to Mitchell's, get copies there. The bodega next door, the salt room down there at Velocity, they've got it in various clinics and dental offices and Fat Jack's, for example.
Here at Cohat.
Coats, absolutely, and any of the places that we have, all the sponsors, locations, any number of places you can get a copy, and they'll be out, for example, the 1st of August, 1st of October, the big auto show coming up. We'll have many copies there. Early December, February,
And also,
April, and June.
rwheller.com, it's a digital version.
Yeah.
And iamlakeland.com, there's a digital version,
Yeah.
so you don't have to wait for a piece of paper. You can read it while
Yeah,
you're
you
on your
can read
mobile.
it. Yes, you can see it and read it and have an opportunity to appreciate it that way. And also to get some good books from R.W. Heller and Associates and I Am Lakeland. Don?
Thank you, Ron.
All right,
God bless.
partner.